Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. Please share with our audience your amazing journey so far. What does the MLI do and how did it start?
Well, let's start with how it started. It's kind of an interesting story. I was asked by Jim Flaherty, who was then the Minister of Finance, to come up to Ottawa as the Clifford Clark visiting economist, and that's a fancy name for the sort of one-man in-house policy gadfly and economic policy advisor for the federal government. I had the rank of an assistant deputy minister. I went up to Ottawa, sat with all the senior civil servants around the board table at finance. We, determined what went into the budget and sent it up to the minister for sign off and so on. And after 2 years doing that, I mean, you really get a lot of insight into how Ottawa works from that perch. And after 2 years, my appointment was up. I was going back home to Halifax, where I then lived. And I thought to myself, these guys really need help. I had discovered what an incredible mess Ottawa was, how little control the politicians and civil servants had, how much money was wasted. I mean, all kinds of things. And as I was leaving, I asked myself, well, what can I do to help? Because, if Ottawa's working badly, it's not serving the interests of Canadians. And the answer I came up with was, I said, okay, now why is it that Ottawa is the only G7 country that doesn't have a national think tank in the national capital talking about national policy to national policymakers, the national media, and the national electorate? I thought that was a big hole in our democratic infrastructure, and I set out to fill it. And the way I set out to fill it was creating the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, which, our sort of slogan is ideas matter. And of course, in a show about innovation, you got to care about ideas. But every innovation is a new idea, right?
So true.
And so now Victor Hugo said, ideas are the most powerful force in the world. They're more powerful than all the armies. And I believe that that's true. And if you really want to affect policy, whether it's in Canada or anywhere else, what you need to do is you need to show people why the ideas they have in their heads, the ideas about what kind of military we should have, or the ideas we have about unemployment insurance, or the ideas about tax rates and so on. And you got to say, okay, you've got this idea about how that works and how it should work. I'm here to give you a better idea. If you can give people a better idea, you change their expectations, you change their behavior, you change what they want, you change the way they vote, maybe. This is how I think good think tanks influence public policy, by putting new ideas in people's heads and getting them to demand better and showing them how good ideas will improve things.
Totally agree. Canada as a middle power doesn't often exercise its middle power status effectively. It's surprising to me that think tanks in Canada haven't been more aggressive in that space, and it certainly sounds like MLI has been and is doing the job just wonderfully. Tell me, how old is MLI?
Well, so we're going to be, I believe, 13 in the spring. So, there are lots of think tanks that are older, have bigger budgets than we do. But on the other hand, we're the most mentioned think tank in Parliament. 500,000 people watched our videos last year, 50,000 times. We were mentioned in the...
Hold your thought. We'll come back after commercial break.